There's a different kind of horror in the quiet ones. Not the killers who scream, rage, or try to disappear, but the ones who don't flinch. The ones who plan with perfect calm, who wait patiently behind kind eyes and small smiles, who dream not of chaos but of intimacy through destruction. Issei Sagawa was one of those men, and in the summer of 1981, inside a cramped Paris apartment, he fulfilled a fantasy so vile, so surreal, that the world still struggles to understand how he ever walked free. Issei was born in Kobe, Japan in 1949. A premature birth left him weak, sickly, and almost unnaturally small. Doctors doubted he'd survive infancy, but he did. He was raised in a wealthy, respected family and given every opportunity to thrive. Yet something inside him grew twisted. He later claimed that from early childhood he was consumed by cannibalistic fantasies, visions not driven by hatred or rage, but longing. He said he felt a desire to eat beauty, to consume the physical body of someone perfect, not to destroy them, but to possess them entirely. He never wanted to kill out of anger. He wanted to make someone part of him, forever. By his teenage years, the fantasies had taken shape. He spoke openly in later years about imagining women's thighs, wondering how they would taste. While attending university in Japan, he even attempted to bite a sleeping woman. The incident was reported, but it was quietly handled. No one spoke of it again. His family made it disappear. And eventually, so did he, leaving Japan behind to attend the Sorbonne in Paris, where he studied literature and French poetry. There, in a foreign city, his fantasy deepened. He was alone, invisible, and no one was watching. He could blend in, observe, wait. That's when he met Renee Hartevelt. She was 25, Dutch, and brilliant, a fellow student, fluent in multiple languages, deeply immersed in the arts, warm and curious. To Sagawa, she was mesmerizing. Her intellect, her voice, her presence. He called her the perfect woman, and once he chose her, the rest was inevitable. On June 11, 1981, he invited her to his apartment under the pretense of translating German poetry. She'd been there before. It was small, cluttered with books, quiet. She was comfortable. She sat. She read. He poured wine, and then, while her back was turned, he picked up the rifle he'd purchased just for this moment and shot her in the neck. Renee collapsed instantly. Sagawa said she died without a sound. He didn't scream, he didn't run, he fainted. When he woke, hours had passed. The air was thick, silent. Renee's body lay where it had fallen, still, pale, and strangely peaceful. Sagawa stared at her for a long time. Then, with steady hands, he undressed her. Not violently, not hurried, almost reverently. He positioned her body, took photographs, documented her, like a collector might preserve a rare artifact. This was not chaos. This was ritual. And then, slowly, methodically, he retrieved a knife. He made the first incision into her thigh. He later said he was surprised by how easily the blade moved through her flesh. He cut small pieces and tasted them raw. Then he cooked them, sautéed strips of her muscle in a frying pan with butter and mustard. He described the flavor in interviews years later, said it was soft, like tuna, richer than beef. Not unpleasant, not grotesque, just fulfilling. He spent 2 days with her, eating from her, sleeping beside her, speaking to her. He was not in a frenzy. He wasn't panicked. In his mind, he had achieved something sacred. He believed that by eating her, he had absorbed her soul, that she was now part of him in the purest, most permanent way. But time decays even the darkest fantasies. The smell of death began to settle into the walls, flies circled. The apartment grew heavy with rot. He knew he had to dispose of what remained. He bought 2 large suitcases, dismembered what was left of Renee's body, folded her inside, limbs, torso, head, packed like cargo. On June 13th, he called a taxi and rode across Paris to the Bois de Boulogne, a wooded park with a quiet lake. His plan was simple: drop the cases into the water, let them sink, let nature erase the evidence. But Sagawa was small. The suitcases were large, heavy. He struggled to drag them across the grass. Bystanders noticed. Some thought it odd, how the man strained, how he glanced around. One person called the police. When officers arrived, they asked him to open the luggage. He didn't run. He didn't protest. He simply complied. Inside, they found the dismembered remains of René Hartevelt, wrapped in plastic, carefully arranged. He was arrested on the spot. At the station, Sagawa confessed immediately, no hesitation, no shame. He spoke clearly, even politely, detailing the murder and consumption without resistance. It was, to him, already over. The act had been completed, the hunger had been satisfied. Now all that remained was the telling, and tell it he did. In full, vivid detail. French authorities charged Issei Sagawa with murder. There was no mystery, no trial filled with doubt. The evidence was overwhelming. His confession was immediate. The case should have been open and shut. But nothing about this story ends the way it should. A judge ordered psychological evaluations. The results were convenient. Sagawa was declared legally insane, not just unstable, insane, unfit to stand trial. He was sent not to prison, but to a psychiatric institution outside Paris. There he was treated not as a killer, but as a patient, a man broken by sickness, not evil. But even that fragile cage wouldn't hold him for long. Sagawa's father, a wealthy and influential man in Japan, hired lawyers, pulled strings, applied pressure, and within 2 years, Sagawa was quietly deported back to Japan. Authorities there promised to recommit him, to reopen the case, to keep him under supervision. But the French government refused to release the court documents. Due to a legal technicality, Japanese prosecutors could not file charges. Without the files, the evidence was lost in translation. There was no way to try him again. Doctors in Japan examined him, declared him sane. And in 1986, just 5 years after the murder, Issei Sagawa walked out of the hospital, free. No prison sentence, no criminal record, no surveillance. He walked among the living with full knowledge of what he had done. And worse, he was proud of it. Sagawa didn't hide. He didn't change his name. He didn't move quietly into the countryside. He leaned in. He gave interviews. He wrote books. One of them, In the Fog, described the murder and cannibalism in haunting detail. It sold thousands of copies. He painted images of women, always missing parts of themselves. He posed for magazine covers. He was invited onto talk shows. He starred in graphic films. Japan didn't know what to do with him. Was he a monster? A spectacle? A symbol? He became something grotesque and fascinating. A man who did the unthinkable and lived to talk about it. People would stop him on the street. Some screamed. Others asked for autographs. And he gave them, smiling, always smiling. When asked if he regretted it, he often said yes. But his eyes said something else. They said he remembered every taste, every texture. They said the hunger had never really left. Time didn't dull the memory. It simply deepened the shadow. As years passed, Sagawa grew bitter. He claimed society had cast him out, treated him like a monster. But it wasn't society that kept his name alive. It was him. He spoke. He wrote. He reminded the world. He gave interviews into his 60s, each more unsettling than the last. In one, he calmly admitted, "I still have the desire to eat a woman. I can't stop it. But I don't act on it. That's the difference." His voice never shook. His eyes never darted. He spoke like a man recounting a lost love, not a murder. Despite his infamy, Sagawa lived in poverty. The brief fame dried up. He struggled to find work. No one wanted to hire him, but everyone remembered him. He lived alone in a small apartment in Tokyo, surviving off disability payments. The same hands that had once prepared human flesh now trembled from illness. The man who once felt godlike in his consumption was reduced to a shell, still alive, but empty. And then, in November 2022, at the age of 73, Issei Sagawa died of pneumonia. No public funeral, no memorial. His death was quiet, unremarkable. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered without ceremony. But his story, that never disappeared. Issei Sagawa is not a cautionary tale about a man losing control. He's a reminder of what happens when control is never taken away. He did not kill in rage. He didn't snap. He planned. He studied. He fantasized for decades. And when he acted, he did so with chilling clarity. The systems meant to hold people like him failed. France deemed him insane. Japan declared him sane. Neither held him accountable. He existed in a space between borders, between labels, monster and man, victim and predator, sick and sane. And Renée Hartevelt? She became little more than a name in the shadow of his myth. She was real. She had dreams. She had friends. She wasn't part of a story until he made her one. And that's the final horror, because in the decades that followed, Sagawa got everything he wanted. He consumed her. He kept her with him. And the world let him tell the story his way. Some monsters hide in the dark. Others walk in daylight. They give interviews. They write books. They smile for the camera. And sometimes, they die peacefully, while their victims are left in silence, forever voiceless, beneath the soil they were never meant to be part of. For more dark stories and deeper truths, follow Abstract Pulse, where every heartbeat tells a tale.